non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
Fourth, I've told you I think the Vikings are the shock of the league. They've got a new coach, a coach that is pro-offense. Kirk Cousins has not had a strong relationship with Zimmer for 2 years. They lost more close games than anybody in the league. I think Cousins, who has some limitations, will feel supported. I think part of his issue in these big games, he didn't believe Zimmer supported him. They'll be the most improved team in the league. I think they're 13-4.
Man, is there anyone in the national media even like lukewarm on the Vikings? And then there's Cowherd who thinks they're a 13-win team. And I love it.
So he had, when he, I guess theoretically a couple weeks ago or a month ago, screwed up, he had him at 16-1, right?
Or maybe he has backed off a few wins. Maybe he initially thought they were a 16-win team and thought, Garrett Bradbury is a little unreliable. Let's knock him down to 13.
I wonder who he talked to. Like, he clearly talked to somebody who was really excited about the Vikings.
Yeah.
That's not just going through, stories or like summarizing off-season transactions, right?
Yeah, well, he had Ben Lieber on
reflection.
his podcast today for apparently 30 or 40 minutes, but that clip that Declan played was, I think, before the Lieber conversation. So, yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe he's got some more, maybe him and Kwesi are tight. I don't know. Anyhow, this is Purple Daily. Daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. The show is presented by Surly Brewing Company and our friends at TCL, one of the world's best-selling consumer electronics brands. They have a new lineup of award-winning TVs delivering the most entertainment with stunning resolution at an affordable cost. Enjoy more of the things you love with TCL and learn more at TCL.com. Our training camp preview series continues today, boys. The Vikings. Why are the Vikings starting training camp like a week after some of these other teams? Is it just Camp KOC? Aren't there veterans reporting for the Raiders this week, I want to say?
Is that a Hall of Fame game thing?
Maybe you're right about that.
It might be a Hall of Fame game thing, which is still one of the great mysteries in my life right now is why we still play that game.
Why not?
Why do you need an extra
why would you want to take that game away?
There's no need for it.
There's no need for any preseason
but you got
games.
3. You know what? If I'm a team, I'm playing 3. That's it now. And I'd like to get it down to 2 eventually. But I mean, the Hall of Fame game is like the most. It's like, okay,
it signifies the start of football season. It's
I know.
The first football game.
I'm looking to change that, Phil.
Okay. I think they should do a game. We talked about this a few years ago. I can't remember who came up with this, but they should do some sort of like off-season league for,
that would be more valuable.
Not your 53, but the guys who are trying to, basically what the USFL and the XFL are doing. Why doesn't the NFL do like a 4-week thing or something?
I think that was a Phil and Judd thing, and I think we also said that would replace. I think we said you'd get it down to like one preseason game with like that the veterans can play in and participate in, but basically make it a spring league where your young players can get experience.
Yeah,
which would sell tickets too.
Yes. So I know, Judd, you have some, because people think that Judd's just this hot take spewing talking head here. Judd is also a well-respected, credentialed journalist and a videographer too. So you call for the great videographer work that you have done on our subject here today. But let's devote this training camp preview snippet here today to Kellen Mond. Basically, we're going to pose the question: what's the deal with Kellen Mond? Here, we're 15 months into this thing with Mond. He was drafted in the 3rd round of 2021. He was one of the most experienced Power 5 quarterbacks in recent draft history. The guy played 46 games for Texas A&M against really tough SEC competition, won a bunch of games his last year. Chris Sims, in particular, loved Kellen Mond out of college, ranking him ahead of both Trey Lance and Justin Fields. This is what Chris Sims said, if you remember back like 15 months ago, referring to Kellen Mond. His throwing is special. I think as pure throwers right now, when you just talk about, man, they can stripe it and throw perfect strikes every time. Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, and Kellen Mond, to me, are more machines than Trevor Lawrence is at this point. Mond has a quick release. Every throw he makes is a bullseye. It's a rocket arm. He doesn't need space in the pocket. He can throw it with pressure in the pocket. Never really misses a throw in general altogether. But it's been 15 months since he was drafted, and the only time we really ever saw him outside of here and there in training camp because he also was out with COVID at one point. It was like a 3-play snippet against the Packers in which Mike Zimmer shredded him post-game and just said, I've seen enough of Kellen Mond. I don't see him anymore. So that's kind of the first 15 months of Kellen Mond. Some people thought very highly of him coming out of the draft. And now we're sitting here not even sure if he can beat out Sean Mannion for the number 2 quarterback spot. So I don't know. What do you make of Kellen Mond going into his second training camp?
Well, first of all, Dex, let's see that arm, because I took some video of that arm during the mandatory mini camp. So let's see what Kellen Mond can do here, and we'll discuss where Kellen Mond might be going. Look at that. Look at
Wow,
that.
that
Right
is,
in the
I
thing.
mean,
Right in the thing. It's a
come
great
on,
check down
man.
pass. Fantastic check down pass. So I find this to be very intriguing. I think that this is actually in a training camp that we're not expecting a lot of battles. Like, there's not going to be a lot here. There will be backup for sure. But there's not going to be high profile, right? Like, Bradbury might get challenged, but I don't think so. And beyond that, like at safety, I think the backup QB thing is extremely intriguing as training camp starts. And it's not because I'm excited to see Sean Mannion. It's because Kellen Mond, among a draft class of guys who basically, I think, got lost in the divorce shuffle between Spielman and Zim last year, Kellen Mond's an extremely intriguing one. He was taken at essentially the top or near the top of the 3rd round a year ago, April. And if you recall, he was taken 1 pick before the Texans, who I know are a dumpster fire, but they took Davis Mills next. And Mills is now a starting quarterback. And you know what? That might be entirely premature. I'm not saying he's good, but what I am saying is that, just for context, it's extremely interesting to me that Mond got buried like he was a 6th round pick or a 7th round pick, and the guy taking a pick after him is starting. And I think if there's ever an opportunity, because there's no question that 2021 in Kellen Mond's world was a lost year, Phil, there's no doubt that Kevin O'Connell taking over as coach is probably among the people that it's going to benefit, which no question is Kirk Cousins, Jefferson. But if you go down that list, I think Kellen Mond would be up there, because he's going to, I think, get a shot now. And he might be a bust. I have no clue. But what I do know is that I think it's safe to say that last year, starting in training camp, Kellen Mond probably never got really sufficient coaching. And he will now, from a guy who is a really good quarterback guru type offensive mind. And so among the players that this year is absolutely going to be huge for, and I don't mean just for this year, I mean as far as their career arc and development, Kellen Mond is up there, because this is now going to give him the opportunity, for lack of a better term here, to redeem himself. It's not his fault, but there's no doubt that he got lost in the shuffle, and I think to a large extent almost purposefully ignored as well.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be the case now. So I'm very curious to see him in training camp, and probably just as importantly, 3 preseason games.
Yeah, I think it's way too early to call him a bust. Are there some red flags here and there? I did not love the way that he looked completely overwhelmed in a late season game, too. At that point, you had all year to sort of sit back as the number 3 quarterback, and he comes in against the Packers, and he also knows that Sean Mannion is starting that week. So, dude, you're like 1 hit away from coming in the game, and he still looked completely overwhelmed. So I don't think you can put it all on Mike Zimmer. It's like, dude, why are you not a little bit more ready to play in that situation? He just, go back and watch those plays. It was a train wreck. But at the same time, if you were going to saddle him with the absolute worst possible combination of coaches, it would be the head coach that's just like cantankerous and on his way out and doesn't care about offense at all. Mm-hmm. And it would be the 34-year-old first-year offensive coordinator that's kind of in over his head trying to make the first-team offense click with Kirk Cousins, right? The Vikings organizationally weren't in a spot where they could devote much attention to anything other than Kirk Cousins, and because they were in desperation, win-now mode, trying to save jobs, failing at that. So they weren't going to take an extra 30 minutes here and there to go sit down with Kellen Mond and make sure everything is good. Now, this year, you could argue, well, it's a first-year head coach, and they're installing a new system, and maybe they're not going to have a ton of time to put their arms around the backup quarterback this year either, but it just feels like a more offensive-friendly and just probably in terms of communication, just a better fit connecting with Mond. What I'm curious about is, and we talked about this on Mackie and Judd with Doogie a little bit, is there's been very little written or reported about Kellen Mond, period, in the 15 months. There might have been like a feature here and there, but basically once training camp was over and the COVID stuff was over, I feel like it's been a year since we've read or heard anything substantive about his development or his locker room presence or anything.
At some point in time, it might have been between OTAs and minicamp or around then, Chris Thomason from the Pioneer Press did do something where he talked to Mond's dad. And I think that's the one where Mond's dad said that Mike really didn't want, not surprisingly, didn't want Mond drafted because you got to add defense.
And Mond's dad didn't hang up on Chris Thomason, which was the real win for that story.
Because he called about his son. He said, "What's up with your son? We're curious about this." But yeah, I feel like one of the really, and it's not the reporter's fault, but one of the big stories of 2021 was all of the guys, and Mond probably tops this list, all of the young guys who were lost in the shuffle, right?
Yeah.
Like you think about this. In fact, I think one of the most interesting things about Rick Spielman's future is this. I think Rick Spielman, in some ways, could be helped tremendously for future employment in the league if O'Connell can maximize last year's draft class.
Yeah. Because right now it looks like a massive front office whiff right now.
Exactly. Right? But like, let's say Kellen Mond can play, and let's say like he does really well in training camp, and teams start to say, oh, you know what, he's not bad. And then there's so much of that draft class that just basically got ignored. And if that draft class now can start to pay off and play well, Spielman's stock, in my mind, around the league goes back up, because then you can firmly say it was Mike's fault, not Rick's fault.
Yeah. So the bar is pretty low at this point. 'Cause, let me back up a step. I think there's sort of there's two avenues by which we can judge Kellen Mond. There's what are the chances he would ever become a viable starting quarterback, which at this point is kind of an irrelevant conversation unless Cousins gets hurt. Because Cousins is under contract with a no-trade clause through next season, 2023. So when they drafted Mond, I think Cousins had like one more guaranteed year left, and it was you even made a prediction that's still on the board, and one of our write that downs that Mond will be the week 1 starter of 2022, and we're leaving it on the board. And if there's a rash of injuries or something, you never know. Yeah. But the conversation about him being a starter is not as relevant as can he be a backup at this point. And just for fun, I went back to 1990 on Pro Football Reference, and found, and this is kind of me just ballparking, but the percent chance of a second, third, or fourth round drafted quarterback becoming either a viable starter in the league for multiple years, and that ranges from like Drew Brees down to some guys that like David Garrard, was fine for a few years. You'd consider him a success. So there's a wide range of what it means to be a viable starter for a few years or a viable backup for any number of years. And I found that there were 128 quarterbacks drafted since 1990 in rounds 2, 3, or 4. And Mond is kind of smack dab in the middle because he was an early third-round pick. And by my count, around 20% of them pan out to be multi-year quality starters, and another 25 to 30% pan out to be decent, solid backups. Like Tavares Jackson was just a good guy to have around if you need a spot start or something, and he was good in the locker room, good in the quarterback room. So that means about 50% of quarterbacks drafted between rounds 2, 3, and 4 since 1990 are just in and out after a couple of years, and they're busts.
Yep.
So the first bar for him to clear is the backup bar, and it might be the lowest bar of any team in the NFL. Can you beat Sean Mannion for the QB2 job? And maybe there's another bar or two around. Maybe there's a couple other backup quarterbacks that are equally or equally bad or worse than Sean Mannion. But Mannion has a career passer rating of 66.2, which is 10 points lower than Christian Ponder's career passer rating. That is what you're trying to beat for the number 2 quarterback job.
Yes.
And people might say, well, yeah, but Mannion holds the upper hand because A, he's been a veteran in the league, and B, more importantly, he's basically an assistant quarterbacks coach for Kirk Cousins. He's very helpful with film study and things like that. We've heard behind the scenes.
Yep.
But you can have a third quarterback on your roster that's your job is to be there during the week, and it's to provide some support for the quarterback room, etc. When you put Mannion in a game, in the 3 games he has started in his NFL career, one of them, by the way, was at the end of the year against Chicago, just like a throwaway game. Those 3 starts, his teams have lost by an average score of 31-14. So unless there's just some small sample size noise and he's really just give him another chance or two, you can't put him in a game, Sean Mannion. So can Kellen Mond just get to the point where you can trust him to put him in a game, not get blown out? He can run the offense and give yourself, if Cousins misses a month, maybe you can win a game or 2 and keep your season going forward, right? That's the bar to clear for 2022.
Yeah, and that's an incredibly important one, though, because, look, I mean, Kirk, and I will always give him credit every time we discuss this, Kirk has been an Iron Man, which in this league is very difficult. I think he's now missed, with the COVID thing in Green Bay last year, 2 career starts. It's ridiculous. But that being said, at some point in time, unfortunately, your luck ordinarily runs out and something happens. And to your point, Phil, you miss a month, you might miss 2. If Sean Mannion has to start, so like if this coaching staff is like, Kellen Mond literally cannot play, we are going to have to start a guy who is Kirk's friend. Like this is as close as you can come to going out and signing Kirk's best friend from grade school.
I know,
and,
he's not
and being
good.
like, dude, just go play. So to me, the urgency in training camp is partially going to depend largely on this. Can Kellen Mond back up? Because if he can't, look, Mannion's going to stick. I know that. I've accepted it. He is good for Kirk, and they've decided what's good for Kirk is good for the Vikings. But if you decide Kellen Mond simply cannot play football, like we can't play him, I think you have to seriously, because there are expectations for 2022. Like this is not a team without expectations. You don't run it back to say, well, Kirk got hurt, we are totally screwed.
Yeah.
I think you have to go examine your backup quarterback options and possibly cut ties with Mond, which I don't want to do. But I'm saying if you see him, if Kevin O'Connell and Phillips and the entire offensive staff's like, this kid is not good, then you have to, in my opinion, go at least examine, right, getting a backup QB. So the importance in training camp is not just, can Kellen Mond play? It is, can you prepare him to play? Because there's going to get to be a period of time, I guarantee it, where Kirk Cousins can't play, and it could be this year.
I want to throw one just to tie up the Sean Mannion conversation here. It is worth noting, and maybe it was worth noting earlier in this discussion, that he spent 2 years in 2017-18 in Sean McVay's system with the Rams. So he knows the system, and Kirk has spent time in the Shanahan system too, even though Kirk has kind of downplayed the whole thing, saying that like all systems are pretty much the same. That's not true. I don't know why you said that. But, when it comes to just like refreshing Kirk or teaching Kellen Mond, Sean Mannion's actually one of the better guys to do that, because he literally spent 2 full seasons behind Jared Goff in 2017-18, and that was a high-powered Rams offense those 2 years.
Yep.
And funny enough, too, he spent the previous 2 years with the Rams in 15-16, so he was at the end of the Jeff Fisher cantankerous era, moving into the young offensive-minded coach era. So he has pretty much mirrored experience to what's happening right now with the Vikings moving from Zimmer into Kevin O'Connell. So that's kind of the picture for Kellen Mond, which is step 1, can you beat Sean Mannion for the QB2 role?
Uh-huh.
And if you're put in a game, can you give the Vikings a better chance than Sean Mannion has given them in the games that he started so far? Right? That's the bar.
And the craziest thing is, and you might say this is like a hot take or like you're kidding here, but Kevin O'Connell's influence here and his evaluation of Kellen Mond is going to be humongous. Like these next 6 weeks in training camp decide Kellen Mond's future. And KOC, I think, was asked about him at his introductory press conference, and I think gave the classical, like, we've seen tape on Kellen Mond, and we've gone back and we've watched all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. But if he is not a viable option to Kevin O'Connell, then it's a wrap. Like Kellen Mond could be just relegated to the practice squad and or off the roster if he can't prove that he can legitimately play or show them something that he can beat out Sean Mannion over the next 6 weeks of training camp.
Don't you guys think, too, that it's pretty likely Cousins isn't going to play much, if at all, in the preseason? So these three preseason games are going to be kind of a 50-50 split. Right now, they don't even have a fourth quarterback on the roster because they cut Nate Stanley.
Right.
So it's probably going to be, Sean Mannion in the first half or vice versa, and then Kellen Mond. He's going to play like probably 3 halves of football in the preseason. So we'll get to see a lot of him.
So here's an interesting sidebar off of this entire storyline that I'm curious to see, because ordinarily it's a backup quarterback competition, right? It would be like, Kelly Holcomb and Tavares are battling or something like that. What's intriguing about this one is this. I would not be surprised at all, and this also goes back to the fact that Mannion is familiar with a lot of the schematics here that O'Connell's going to bring. If O'Connell sits or has sat Mannion down and basically says, look, guy, if you want to coach, which he very well might want to, I need you to help me with Mond, because you're not going to play in this league. I mean, O'Connell can speak to Mannion from largely the same perspective, right? Which is you've got the smarts. You're not terrible, but you're certainly not a guy that can play consistently, just like KOC, in this league. And so I wonder if he can enlist Mannion to actually help with Mond, because Mond, I'm not saying Sean's not competitive, but he's not at the point of his life where he's like, I am going to beat out Kellen Mond, right? And he's not going to be cut probably. So there would be,
if you can assure that he's not going to get cut. Hey, you're going to get a nice fat little 6-7 figure paycheck, whatever his base salary is. Yeah,
I don't think you bring him back if there's any chance he's going to be cut. My guess is this: behind the scenes, he is a large help for Kirk again.
And you need people like that on your team.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But I mean, if he can help, if Mannion can help with Mond's development, I think that ultimately scores Mannion more points as far as if he wants to coach. Because I mean, you know what? That dude could be head coaching material.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah. It's kind of like, you have mastered the Livia system, and now you are mentoring your wife who's on the Livia system here. But you're taking all your experience in the Livia system, and you guys are losing weight together. It's great.
Exactly right. Down 40 pounds, as you can see me at the wedding last weekend. Dawn down 12 plus pounds. It's been fantastic so far. Those clothes right now, if you're catching us on the YouTube show, I'm going to tell you right now, 6 months ago, they didn't come close to fitting, and now that they fit, and I want you to join me on this plan. It's the Simple Start plan, only $59, one-on-one personalized and guided support online or in person, whichever is most convenient for you. So if you're outside the state, guess what? It doesn't matter. 855-GO-LIVIA, livia.com, livea.com. Drop those pounds today and get all those clothes to fit. You'll be glad you did. Livia.com.
Real quick, a little breaking news as we sit here and record Purple Daily here on this Thursday.
Whoa.
Kyler Murray.
Oh, yeah.
Little 5-year extension for $230 million with $160 million in guarantees. According to Ian Rappaport, he'll be one of the NFL's highest paid players, sources tell him, and our good friend Tom Pelissero. So after an offseason of drama, Murray could be locked in as the Cardinals starter quarterback for years to come. Interesting. So there it is, another highly paid quarterback on the board. I don't know if he likes to ride motorcycles or bikes, but he can certainly afford one now.
Absolutely. You should go up to Brainerd International Raceway and Motor America.
I was going in a different direction, but that works too. No, fire away. Yeah. We got dueling sponsors here on Purple Daily. Yeah.
Well, because I thought there was 190 mile an hour super bikes coming to Brainerd International Raceway coming up, and that's what Kyler Murray can do. Motor America, super bikes, super sport, stock 100, Twin Cup and Junior Cup. Join Brainerd International Raceway and Motor America for 3 days of heart-pumping fun. Start your planning your summer now with camping and ticket information at BIRMN.com. It's July 28th through the 31st. Brainerd International Raceway and Motor America. Visit BIRMN.com for camping and ticket information.
If those Motor America people are in a pinch and they need some parts and accessories, Dennis Kirk has 160,000 parts and accessories in stock. Free shipping on orders over $89 and same-day shipping on orders placed before 8 p.m. Ride more, wait less at DennisKirk.com. All right. Let's get it.
It's unbelievable.
That was awesome.
Man. Okay, what are people saying about the Minnesota Vikings here? Declan stepped in front, intercepted the pass, and then I grabbed it back.
Pick
He
six.
jumped the route. Antoine Winfield. Nice play. Veteran savvy.
Thank you.
So Bill Barnwell, who is ESPN.com's resident analytics artiste, he put together a ranking of all 32 teams in the NFL ranked by their skill position player groups. Yep. So this is every team's receivers, running backs, and tight ends bundled together as a group, ranked from 32 all the way counting up to 1. And the rules that he used to help sort through this list are only thinking about 2022 performance, so long-term performance doesn't matter. Injury history, holdouts, and suspensions do matter. So like Christian McCaffrey's always hurt. That matters in these rankings. Wide receivers are more heavily weighted than running backs or tight ends because that's the way the league is going right now. I'm not mentioning every single player in this group. He's mostly looking at your top skill position players. And then efficiency matters. So if your yards per route are higher, then you're going to get a higher grade, which is good news for Justin Jefferson. Let's start with the worst real quick because there's some interesting ones in here.
Sure.
The Texans have the worst group of skill position players. Number 32. The Bears are 31. They've gutted everything.
Yep.
It's always a great strategy with your young quarterbacks to give them nothing to throw to, which has kind of been Chicago for a long time, actually. The Giants are 30th. The Packers, who were 11th going into last year, are 29th.
Wow.
Yeah, well, you lose Devon. I mean, Aaron Jones still good, but they're throwing out some slappies out there for the receiving core.
Yeah, Sammy Watkins.
They definitely are, but you know what? Until Aaron Rodgers has a year where he does not develop a guy, I totally get that because of the names, but we talked about this a couple days ago with James Jones, who was just the definition of a slappy until he played with this guy. So that's what's interesting about it. But yeah, they don't have. I mean, depth chart wise, it's not good.
Yeah, so they have Randall. The receivers are Sammy Watkins, Randall Cobb. Both those guys are years past their prime, right? And then Alan Lazard, probably the team's top wide receiver.
They need this kid that they drafted with the pick that the Vikings traded them to be good. I think.
Yes, Christian Watson.
Watson. I don't think there's a way. If he's not good, I don't know that you can work around that.
But you know what's interesting? I think I'm right on this. I think it took Aaron Rodgers 3 years to trust Devontae Adams. So Adams was a second round pick as well.
Yep.
And it took till year 3. Year 3, he targeted him 120 times, just 997 yards, 12 touchdowns. But 2014-15, and some of it was, I think the Packers that might have been the end of the Jordy Nelson run. So they had some guys, Randall Cobb.
Options.
So opportunity was less for Devontae Adams, but it also might just be that Rodgers likes to deal with veteran receivers. So that's interesting. All right, now let's go. We weren't going to list every team here, but we'll get toward the top 5 here. Number 6 is the Los Angeles Chargers. Number 5 is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Even without, they were number 1 ranked last year, and now they've dropped to 5 because Gronk is gone. The Vikings are 4th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'll read the excerpt here in a second. The Niners are 3rd. The Raiders are 2nd now. They were 22nd last year, but that's what happens when you add one of the best receivers in the NFL in his prime. And then Hunter Renfrow, obviously, too, has come on. And then the Cincinnati Bengals are number 1. Jamar Chase coming on as one of the best receivers in the league. So here's what Bill Barnwell writes about the Vikings. One of the great mysteries of the 21st century will be why the Vikings waited until week 3 of his 2020 rookie season to start Justin Jefferson. We're all still perplexed about that from 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Since entering the lineup that week 2 years ago, Jefferson leads all NFL players with 2,946 receiving yards. The only wideouts to average more yards per target over that stretch are Devontae Adams and Deebo Samuel. Jefferson combines remarkable efficiency with relentless volume, and if reports are correct, his role in the offense might grow under Kevin O'Connell. And then they go on to praise Dalvin Cook and Alex Madison. The Vikings will also get back Irv Smith Jr., and KJ Osborne has been a solid 3rd wide receiver and should be featured regularly. And then there's a blurb about how good Adam Thielen has been when he's been healthy as well. Similar high ankle sprains like Thielen suffered have felled in the past veterans such as Michael Thomas, Roddy White, and Mohamed Sanu. So while the hope has to be that he returns to his level of play, I'm a little bit concerned about that. So some high praise there. If Thielen can come back from injury, then this thing might even be better. But yeah, do you agree with that? Do the Vikings have a top 4 or 5 group of skill position players?
They absolutely do. Like if you look at this team, receivers now do they have as much receiver depth as you'd like probably for what they're going to do? They might be a guy short. I don't know. But if you look at the top end skill position talent that this team has with Jefferson, with Cook, with potentially, if healthy, Irv Smith Jr., yes, they 100% do. And in fact, I might be, if you were to also, if you're factoring in quarterback play here, I also might have been tempted to put the Vikings third because, Trey Lance in San Fran is a big unknown at this point. Like Garoppolo, you might not love, but like with Kirk, you sort of know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Trey Lance, I'm very curious to see how that translates, if that takes some time. Clearly, they had some trepidation about playing him last year. So, yes, I think that the Vikings, when it comes to skill position players on offense, are a top 5 team. And I don't even know that it's big-time debatable. Like, they're that good.
And it's kind of amazing how the Packers losing, and they lost Valdez-Scantling too. So they lose one amazing target, and then Valdez-Scantling very good too. For the Packers to be 29th and the Vikings to be 4th, that's a huge offensive gap to make up. And okay, Rodgers is better than Cousins, but he's also 38,
right?
And the playoff version of him, if that starts to creep into the regular season, then maybe he goes down another peg. Packers' offensive line, when healthy, far better than the Vikings, so that's probably where they make up. But you could probably say the Vikings' offense collectively, now that Devontae Adams is gone, and then the new scheme, might be better than the Packers for the first time in a while.
I would argue that you could almost haul out the Farvinian, the pieces are in place line offensively.
Pieces are in place?
Like when you look at this offense, when you look at how it's going to be structured, how it's going to be called, how it's going to be run, and the talent that surrounds it, right? And by the way, I mean, I'm very close, aside from probably center, I'm very close to saying the offensive line is and should be stable. Like it should not be. We should not be like, oh man, did you see Ezra Cleveland? He missed that block. Like we should be past that point. And so if you look at in its totality what this offense is going to bring, in how it's going to be structured and run, which is incredibly important, I think this is a definite pieces are in place. Defense, I'm not so sure. Offense, I'm pretty damn sure if they don't get injuries.
Yeah, it's kind of incredible too because we sit here so much, not as much us. I think we call it like it is on this front, but a lot of people just complain about the things that Kirk doesn't have, right? He doesn't have this, he doesn't have that, but this over here. There are 28 teams, maybe even more than that would die to have the Viking skill position players.
Oh, God, are you kidding?
And if the offensive line is upgraded and the scheme on offense is more modern and putting more pressure on defenses, and if Danielle Hunter is healthy, there's a lot of good things here that you can sink your teeth into. It's pretty hard to find a perfect team in the NFL. But if you can start with an offensive-minded head coach and a top 5 skill position player group and a rock-solid quarterback, that's grounds to win quite a few football games. And then it kind of comes down to health of your pass rushers on defense too. So I thought this was really interesting. Do you guys want to butt heads here for a little random Viking of the Week action?
All right, hold on. I got to get my notepad out so I can take notes.
It's a game of streaks here because Declan had it for a while where he had like a month straight of victories. Now Judd is back with, I believe, let's see here, John Sullivan, Jasper Brinkley, Cedric Griffin, Matt Asiata. 4 consecutive wins for Judd after 4 consecutive wins for Declan. So, Dex, this might be your time today.
Hopefully. We'll see.
All right,
let's
go.
Gotta get back on track.
Oh, Judd holding a Go Judd sign up.
Go Judd.
It's good. It's
Go
good
Judd.
Go Judd.
Random Viking of the Week is presented by our friends at Surly, by the way. The summer of Surly is in full swing heading into training camp.
That's exactly right. And as the weekend approaches, that means it is time to get to the liquor store, to get the Supremes, to get Logic Bombs, Furious. Load up now. Of course, drink responsibly, but make sure that if you're going to the cabin or you're going to be outside enjoying your weekend festivities before training camp starts, that you're doing it the proper way, which in the summer of Surly is with any number of great products from Surly Brewing.
And our friends at Federated Insurance are once again helping to organize the annual Federated Challenge, which, combined with all the great partners and influential people around the Twin Cities, has helped raise $44 million for Big Brothers Big Sisters since 2005. Big Brothers Big Sisters is all about providing children facing adversity with strong, enduring, professionally supported mentoring relationships that helps result in brighter futures, better schools, stronger communities. FederatedChallenge.org to find out more. All right, here are the rules. I throw out a series of clues. You guys get up to 3 incorrect guesses before you are eliminated. You can ask me questions. I can choose to answer or not. Judd has a 28-15 lead on Declan all time here in Random Viking of the Week. Are you ready?
Let's go.
This Random Viking of the Week originally hails from the home of Bret the Hitman Hart, Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Is that his music?
Yeah.
Okay, this Random Viking of the Week played college football in the WAC, the Western Athletic
the WAC
Conference. In high school, this Random Viking of the Week won the state title in the 300-meter hurdles with a time of 38.7 seconds. He also finished 8th in the 110-meter hurdles in high school.
I didn't know there was 300-meter hurdles. I knew there was 100 and 200.
Got to be a little more durable.
Yeah, I guess.
All right, this Random Viking of the Week once rapped on multiple songs by Wisdom under the moniker New Balance. It's a great rapper name, New Balance. I feel like if there was a dad that rapped with like those sort of quarter-high socks, those white socks with the, sort of the ribbed white socks with, you call them New Balance.
I'm in the zone.
They're the shoe of the dad, that's for sure.
I'm in the zone right now. Not now, Chief.
This Random Viking of the Week once had DiGiorno offer him free pizza for a year. My family used to make a lot of DiGiorno when I was a kid.
I like
Big
DiGiorno.
DiGiorno is very
been a while.
quality
I haven't had
pizza. I'm
DiGiorno.
going to tell
Pizza.
you right now, if they want to endorse with us, I can't do it because I'm not partaking in pizza these days, but
In moderation.
Like DiGiorno. That's a good point. That's a very good point, maybe with a Surly. DiGiorno.
This Random Viking of the Week is a former third-round draft pick.
Okay.
And his father played professional football as well in one of Declan's favorite leagues. Actually, in both of Declan's favorite leagues. The CFL and the USFL.
I'm going to take a guess. Marcus McCauley?
Marcus McCauley is incorrect.
Okay.
Logging that name for a future Random Viking of the Week, though.
I'm glad I can give you ideas.
I get more ideas from your guys' incorrect guesses than anything else.
Okay, let's hear it.
All right, this Random Viking of the Week. I'll give you his NFL coaches here. Jim Mora, Mike Holmgren. Sorry, Jim Mora Jr., I believe. Mike Holmgren, Jim Schwartz, Mike Tice.
Oh, God.
Ooh.
Dicey.
Ooh. Jim Schwartz?
I'm going to give a clue that's mostly closed circuit to Declan.
Okay.
Well, it's a clue.
That's fine. That's fine.
The nickname
calm
of the college team he played for is the opposition's nickname to the NWO for a period of time. Actually, it was like a subdivision of the NWO. Their color scheme was red. It was like a red and black version of the NWO, and this is what they were called, and that's the college nickname. Ow!
Yeah, I know what it is. I would. So that's Okay. Keep going. No,
well,
keep going. Keep going. No, I don't.
His brother played college basketball for the Gophers. Yeah, I got my Gopher basketball hat.
Nasty Nate?
Yeah, it's Nate Burleson.
Nate Burleson is correct. He is the random Viking of the week. Kevin Burleson.
As much
Oh,
as
we
I
got
love,
the DiGiorno offer after the...
He broke his arm trying to save a pizza in a car accident.
Yes, that's why. Okay.
Yep, and the other clue, too, he once caught 138 passes in a single college football season, which is bonkers for the Nevada Wolfpack.
Yeah, hell of a player.
Yeah, I mean, I knew the Wolfpack, but if you would have gave me 5 guesses to name like 5 mascots from the WAC, I couldn't do that for you. So that would...
The Nevada Wolfpack.
The only Wolfpack I know is NC State, so that's the only...
I should have got
one
it
I would
after
know.
the coaches. I should have got it after the coaches.
So there it is, Judd, with a 5-game winning streak here on Random Viking of the Week. And that's a wrap on Purple Daily here today. We'll continue with our Vikings training camp preview series from now until sort of the end of next week, early the following week. And you can check out Reckless Speculation Thursday, which had a lot of Vikings injury updates over on Mackie and Judd and the Score North YouTube channel. Thanks for hanging out with us. See you guys.